All right, everybody. It looks like it's time to get started. We'll take care of some of the beginning stuff, and we'll get into the to the webcast, the meat of the webcast as soon as we cover these things. Just so you know, if you haven't ever used the interface before for GoToMeeting, you can minimize the panel that you have with the orange arrow button right there. You can expand it. So if you need a little bit more room on your desktop to see what's going on, you can kind of fly. You can always fly that back and forth. If you notice in the bottom of that panel, you also have a spot for questions. Questions will be answered at the end of the broadcast, not during, just so we make sure we get through all the material. I leave about 10, 15 minutes before 12 o'clock to answer any questions that you might have. If you do, again, the questions will be answered a little bit later on. If you have other questions besides that, my information will be up at the end of the webcast also, and you can email myself if you have any other questions besides that. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So my name is Ben Givehand. If you've been on our webcast before, you might have heard me do a number of different webcasts that we've done. This is kind of becoming a normal for us for every Thursday. We have done the direct, the flexible modeling extension before, and we'll actually include another piece of software that PTC's offer called the direct modeling package, and it will kind of play on both of those and see how they interact and what are the benefits of them. For those of you that do not deal with us directly, we are CDT. CDT is a reseller for PTC products. We are one of the few national VARs here as late. We were bought by a larger company. We are now a national VAR. We do have our certified training centers in Kansas City, in Arlington, which is essentially Dallas, and also in St. Louis. We do deal strictly with PTC solutions, so and because of that, we cover just about all of them. We don't have specific ones that are things that we don't cover just because we go through PTC solutions. So whether it's Windchill or Creo or Pro-E or MathCAD or Arbortext, we support all of those. We have very capable engineers in all of our facilities. Then we do also have our Windchill specialists that we work with out of some of those facilities also. So whether it's, again, all those different solutions, or whether it's migration or integration services, if you have any issues or wants or needs around those, feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to work with you. All of our engineers do take tech support questions whenever we can. As everybody knows, their technical support is supported directly through PTC, but whenever we can try to support you in some form, we will. So again, if you do see my information and you have a question that does not pertain to flexible modeling or the direct modeling package, please feel free to contact me about that also. A little bit more about our training. We are fairly unique about the training that we offer. We will run classes for obviously not only larger companies, but also smaller groups, right? So we run classes for one student also. If at any point in time, if you look at any of our training schedules and you do not see a class up there, feel free to ask us about it, and we will gladly, if we have the ability to add that class in for you. So you can see the address down at the bottom, and again, whether you contact myself or look on our website under the training portion, just give us a call and we'll try to fit whatever needs that we have. Okay. All right, so a little bit about the agenda today. We will get into what is direct modeling and also flexible modeling. We'll talk about the differences and where they come into play and how they might fit something that you have. We'll talk about the different packages that PTC offers under the idea of direct and flexible modeling. There are, even though we're covering two today, there is a third one that we'll talk about. We'll get into the actual live demonstrations and kind of do some back and forth, and you can guys see that also. And then we'll have some save the end for some Q&A. Before we actually get into the meat of the slides here, we will have Rosalinda go ahead and put some questions for you. Please answer those questions. I think she has 3 questions for you, and once those are done, we'll move on from there. So Rosalinda, if you would put those questions up.
Okay, we have a couple of more. That'll do it. It's all yours, Ben.
Okay, and let's see here. What were the results for what version of Creo or what version of Pro Engineer we're using today, just so I have an idea?
Just a second.
Only, I mean, if we can move on if you don't have that quickly available.
I do have it. Just a moment. Majority of users, well, majority of people on here, 43% are using Wildfire 2 to 4. The other 43% are using Creo Elements Pro, which is, you know, version 5.0, and 14% are now using Creo Parametric 1.0.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right. So we have a good mix of people on the call, and because of that, I'll kind of cover a little bit about the direction that PTC is taking, the future of what most of us would know as Pro-E and what's now called Creo Parametric. And so we'll kind of talk about direction, and then we'll also cover a little bit about interface, just a tad bit about the interface of Creo Parametric if this is the first time that you've actually seen it. So what we have here is that the idea of what is Creo Direct and what is direct modeling and what is flexible modeling. And quickly, essentially what PTC did was a number of years back, they picked up a company called, or they bought a company called, or that produced what was Co-Create at the time. And what Co-Create was an independent, and what direct modeling quickly is history or non-history or history-less modeling. So you don't build parametrics into the geometry that you're creating. If you create a block, you just have a geometry that's a block. You might have some dimensions to it, but you're not necessarily putting it on specific planes. You're not attaching. You might put a hole on the side of it, and you can dimension that hole, but if you move the edges or you move the walls, all you're really doing is manipulating geometry. There is no separation between, in the Co-Create solution, what is part mode and what is assembly mode. If you have two bodies of objects, you can describe one as one part and one as another part, and all of a sudden you now have an assembly. So it's the concept of where you're not building these parametric ideas that Pro-E and SolidWorks and CATIA use into your models. It's just geometry manipulation. Okay, and so when PTC bought this company, they went down the path of how can we take both of these paradigms and then merge them together to create a very unique software where I can not only do parametric modeling, but I also can do direct modeling and blend them together to where they help me out, right? When I want to custom manipulate geometry and not care what happens to the parametrics, or under what PTC calls one common data model. And so what you are seeing in Creo 1.0 is the idea, and that idea come to life of having this one common data model to where I can take Pro-E files and open them up in what is called Creo Direct, make changes, and then also take whatever I create in Creo Direct, open it directly up in Creo 1.0 Parametric or Pro-E, and then make those changes also, okay? Or make parametric type changes. So the concept is in Creo Direct is that it's a standalone package. Creo Direct is a standalone package that allows me to not only use the Creo Direct or direct modeling edits that you will see here, but also to create geometry, okay? So in Creo Direct, you have geometry creation that is built for simple, prototype type ideas, conceptual type ideas. Non-heavy CAD users, give them the ability to use a tool that allows them to do quick and easy type geometry creation. And then also, if I want to, be able to take a Pro-E parametric part, put it into Creo Direct, and also build on that idea, again, using a simple-to-use package, all right? So Creo Direct, standalone, you have edit capabilities, and then you also have geometry creation capabilities within Creo Direct. Now, the flexible modeling extension is a part of, or is an extension only, it's only an extension to Creo Parametric, and it does not allow you to create brand new geometry. It allows you to change geometry that already exists, and it allows you to change geometry that already exists, whether it's Pro-E data or whether it's IGES or step data or any import data. And that's where it gets kind of interesting, because in the idea of direct modeling, all we're dealing with is geometry. And it doesn't make a difference what that geometry is. Again, whether it's Pro-E geometry that has history to it, or whether it's IGES or step data that doesn't have history to it, in the end, it's just geometry. And it allows you to manipulate and edit and change that geometry within that, okay, within the extension. So what we're going to see here today is the idea of flexible modeling, and then also the direct and creation of geometry. Now, the first one that we're going to see is flexible modeling. And as I go ahead and get into this, what I'm going to do is just fire up Creo Parametric. Now, the flexible modeling extension is only and can only be part of Creo Parametric. So for those of you that are not using Creo Parametric, this is something that you might be able to get into a little bit later on down the line. For those of you looking to move forward, maybe this is something that encourages you to move a little bit forward. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up two different types of parts. And the parts that I'm going to open up is, one of them is a full Pro-E part. Has all of the features that you can possibly want, right? You see all the features right there. And then what we're also going to open up is this step file that I have, okay? Fairly simple, right? Nothing overly complicated, but it is an actual import feature that we will work on. Now, the idea with the flexible modeling extension is that, first of all, you see the interface up here, okay? For those of you that haven't seen the Creo interface, this is the new Creo interface. This is kind of this will be the idea going forward. The ribbon style interface is something that you'll see throughout the software from now on, right? I have the ability to customize the interface and customize the ribbon and take things in and out of the ribbon and create my own tabs. For time purposes, we won't get into too much of that today, but it makes it easy for you to control and see the button that you have. But what flexible modeling does is that gives you, first of all, this tab, okay? And what it allows you to do is edit geometry based on these ideas that you see right here. Now, this is a full 100% parametric part. And so let's say, for instance, that at the end of the process, at the end of the design process, that they came back in, a customer comes back in and says, you know what, Ben, I want to move this wall and this feature, and then have some features underneath, and I want to move it 2 inches that way. Now, depending on what you did design-wise, this could be something simple or it could be something overly complicated, again, depending on what you built into your part. So what the flexible modeling extension does, it takes it and just bases geometry. So what I can do here is I'm going to select the objects that I want to move. And so I'll come in and say, I want to move that surface. Just turn it upside down, hold the control button, pick that surface. Now, the other thing that flexible modeling does, and it bases itself off selection ideas, okay? And so what I'm going to do is just continue to hold the control button, pick a surface, and say, I also want that boss, okay? So instead of me having to go in and pick multiple surfaces over and over and over again, I use the selection concepts to select multiple objects. I'll turn it upside down, again, hold the control button and say, I want that surface right here, and then I also want the boss that goes with it, okay? Now, all I'm going to do is say, I want to move this object. Now, I can move it in a number of different ways. I can just use something called the 3D dragger, or I can say, I want to move it by dimension. And it says, all right, how do you want to move it? Well, I want to move it based on this surface and off this surface. And from here, all I'm going to do is extend it out from 350. I don't know, we'll just drag it somewhere out here. And then what you're noticing is that I have made a geometry change to parametric geometry. And what you see in your model tree is a feature just called the move feature, okay? And so if I wanted to, I can drag this back above and all my edits go away. I can drag it back down, And what I did is, again, change all these things. I didn't change any dimensions. I just said take this geometry and move it. Okay? All right. Same thing for holes. If I come in and say, all right, I want to move this cylindrical surface, I'm going to say I want the boss, and I can, or excuse me, the cutout with all the secondary, and I'm going to say I want to offset that in, and I want to offset it in a certain distance. Notice how the geometry adapts. I can do it to where the chamfer does or does not expand or stays proportion or not. I just move that hole. Okay, again, didn't change the dimensional value, just changed the geometry itself. I can come in and pick this surface and say I want all of the secondary objects, and this time during the move, I'm going to say I want to move the dragger, use the dragger, and I just want to move it down this way, right about there like that. Okay, there's my new geometry, and moved it over. Again, you might have 50 different dimensions that reference edges and all kinds of crazy stuff that you can put into. But all I'm doing is just manipulating geometry. So what this is good for, especially in the Pro-E world part of it, in the flexible modeling part of it, when you're dealing with Pro-E parts, is that you have no idea half the time how someone built something. But you want to make a quick edit. You can do that very simply. Pick some surfaces, move that geometry, and you move it. Okay? Again, whether it's hole-based, you know what, I want to move this hole to a specific spot. Say, there's the surface, there's my secondary objects. I want to move it, and we'll move it somewhere right then. Again, I could do it dimensionally, but for this, I just moved it over a little bit. Now, this is Pro-E manipulation, okay? Pretty straightforward. You know, it seems like it's pretty easy. Let's go ahead and go to our step part, all right? A lot of us deal with import geometry, and we want to be able to change that import geometry in certain ways. And if anybody's done that on the call or on the webcast, you know that that can be a challenge, a definite challenge in some cases. So, you know, it's no different that what we could do with the Pro-E part that we could do in this case with the step part. So if I go up to my flexible modeling tab, okay, and I say, all right, I want to do something with the boss with the secondary, and I want to move this object somewhere. And again, we could do it by dimension, but I'm going to take this IGES part, or this IGES geometry or step geometry, and say, hey, I just want to move that guy right there. Okay, there it is. I say okay, and what I've done is manipulated geometry. Same thing with rounds. I can come in and pick my round, say I want all my secondary rounds. We can see it picks those rounds, and I say I want to edit these rounds. It will recognize the rounds, and I say I want to take them and move them from 5 to 2.66. We just say okay, and I have manipulated, again, IGES and step data, when before, for those of you that have been on this call and have done this before, you know this really isn't possible to do it. Okay, so we have the same move ideas. I have the same offset ideas. Notice how in this step file that it has a round with the hole. I'm going to say, hey, I want to go ahead and pick that hole and move it. Notice how the rounds, right, manipulate and move right along with it. So I'm not destroying geometry. The software is intelligently recognizing what the geometry is, what is attached to geometry. Okay, let's say that I didn't want that round anymore. I can come in and say, let's go ahead and pick, so I can pick that surface. There it is. Pick it. Say I want all my rounds, and I'm going to say I want to remove those rounds. Okay, notice how I remove those rounds. So again, if you're doing FEA work on IGES or step data, you know, removing rounds and removing chamfers can be painful. So I'll come in and say, hey, here's all my rounds. I want to remove all those rounds, and then there are these results. Okay, so again, keep reiterating this, but this is IGES geometry manipulation. Okay, IGES geometry manipulation, and whether it's Pro-E or IGES with the flexible modeling extension, this is what this specifically gives you. All right, one more thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to use this substitute command. It's kind of a cool command to see work. I have a part that's kind of set up for that. Is that notice in this part how I essentially have just a bunch of Pro-E geometry, okay? And there is a version of this command within the Pro-E, the original Pro-E command, right? There is a replace function, but this one's a little bit different. If I come in and say in the flexible modeling tab, I'll say substitute. This is, what do you want to substitute? I'll substitute this surface. It says substitute with what? I'm going to substitute with this little looks like a little extruded surface that I have right here. And what you're going to see is a substitution of that surface. Now, what's different about this compared to the other compared to the substitute that's in, or the replace that's in Pro E, is that notice how it reconstructed all of the round geometry. And that's really cool, right? It's not like I'm just cutting it off and then I have to recreate my rounds. I was able to create an entire new surface of any shape that I wanted to. We wanted to test 5 different shapes. Okay, I come in and create all those little surfaces that I want. I can replace it. And notice how it reconstructed all of that round geometry right there. Okay, and that's kind of impressive if you've ever seen some other tools work. All these rounds, again, go back in and they it's really not regenerate, but they reconstruct themselves. So a lot of different simple tools that you can use that streamline some of the editing, downstream edits, again, whether it's IGES data or whether it's Pro E data, and some of those concepts, and at the price that PTC offers, the flexible modeling tool, it's really hard to beat, and really it pays for itself really quickly if you ever catch yourself in any of these situations. Okay, so here is the flexible modeling tool, and this is what it's for. Now, this is just geometry manipulation. Okay, I have geometry. I want to move it, change it in size, whatever it may be. What Pro E also offers, okay, what PTC also offers, let's go ahead and close a few of these down, is that they also offer the Creo Direct package. Now, the Creo Direct package is a standalone package that allows users that might not use CAD to be able to quickly come in and add things to Pro E models, or create their own new, what are the common data files that you can read back and forth. Okay, so if I go ahead and say File New right here, notice how I only have part and assembly. Okay, in the Creo Direct, you create parts and you can create an assembly. So I say I'm going to create a part file. There we are, and this is it. This is the interface that you have. So for those of you that are Pro E users, really hardcore Pro E users, here's your sketch tools. Right here are your sketch tools, and those look like what? They look like sketch tools. You see some of your extrude tools and revolve and sweep. Notice how you also have those same editing capabilities, and then you have some of your other recognizable Pro E tools. So what I'm going to do here is say, hey, I want to create a block, and we'll do some different things with the block. But I'm going to say, all right, rectangle, and you notice, and this is a little bit hard to see, and probably a little bit hard to see on your end, but I have essentially coordinates that originate that rectangle. So I'm going to say I want it at 0, 0, okay, and then I'm going to take it out to 10, 10. There we are, and now what I have is a 0 by 10 by 10 block. Now, once I do that, I can say I want to extrude that block. There it is, okay, and now I am extruding that block. Very similar to what you might see in Pro E. You create a 2D shape, and you get a block from it, okay? Now, all the other tools that you use are fairly similar, and they work pretty much the same. So, all right, I want to put draft on. So I'll say draft. I say I want to draft this surface, and I want to draft it from that guy, and there's draft. Okay, pretty simple, easy way to pick tool for those non-heavy CAD users that want to create blocks with draft and maybe edit something. You have the ability to do something like that. Okay, put my draft in. There's my draft. I want to put a hole in. Simple. Come over here and put a hole. Right. By default, it says, okay, here's where I'm going to reference that hole from. I actually say, you know what, instead of it from being there, I actually want it from here, and I want it from right there, and now I have dimensional values that I can control also. We'll kind of put it in a specific spot, and there's that hole. Let's say I want to pattern that hole. I'll come in and say, here's my hole that I want. Go make sure I pick all of it. There it is. Say pattern that hole. We'll pattern it off of this shape right here, or off that side. We'll drag it that way. I got to make sure I do this right. There it is. We'll say pattern. See if I can get it right this time. There we go. Okay. I'll say I want 4 of them. There we are. And again, quick ways to pattern objects. I have round capabilities. Come in and say, hey, on my edge, I want a round. There's the round that I want. If I pick this edge, create another round. There we are. Okay. Now, what's also fairly unique about this is if I come in and say, all right, I want to sketch right here. Let's do this. I'm going to say I'm going to create a circle, and we're just going to create a circle. We won't put too many dimensions in it this time. There we are. Okay, and I'm going to say, all right, I want to create a line. Create a line from here to there, and then I want a line from here to here. One thing that's kind of unique about this, and this is actually a product of the co-create, is that if I come in and say, all right, I want to extrude, notice how I can pick specific sections of that. So essentially what it recognizes are areas within that sketch. So there it is. Let's say I want to create a cut out of that area. Again, I'll say in this case, I want to create an extrude out of that one. Come over here, create an extrude out of that one. This is kind of cool stuff, right? Come over here, pick this one and say I want to create a cut out of that guy. So out of that one sketch, right, I was able to use multiple sections of that sketch to create really different types of features. I have an extrude, I have a cut, and again, pretty straightforward stuff when it comes to that. Now, just like we had before, I have the ability to come in and use some of the editing capabilities. So I'll come in and say, all right, now I want to pick this wall and I want to move it just this way. I want to move it this way, I don't know, somewhere out here. Okay, you see dimensionally it moves, right? I can go ahead and move this hole if I wanted to specifically. Remember, we patterned that hole. Say, all right, I want to move this hole, and I want to move that hole. Actually, let's pick the whole thing. Okay, there it is. And I want to move that hole somewhere right about there. Okay. Again, what was it part of? It was a part of the pattern, but what is it? It's just geometry. It's, again, if I wanted to back up, I could go ahead and say, there we are. Let's go ahead and back up to where I was. There it is. All right. Let's go. And then what did I do? I just moved it backwards. Okay. Now, not only do I have part modeling capabilities within the Creo Direct app, I also have the ability for assembly purposes. Okay. Now, let me make sure. I don't remember exactly what size this guy was here. Let's do it like this. I'm going to take it, let's say modify analytic. Okay. So let me go ahead and reduce that down about a ½ inch, somewhere right there. Okay, there we are. So there will be a ½ inch diameter. Now, let's go ahead and save this part. Say new assembly. Now, just like in Pro E, okay, when I put in a part, it's expecting it to go into a specific spot. So we'll say here's our part, right? There we are. Let's go ahead and drag it out the way. For those of you that haven't seen assembly in Creo Parametric, it does have this 3D dragger where you can drag things around and spin it and turn it. But what happens in the Creo Direct app is that it doesn't have insert or mate or align for wildflower 5 and back guys or the coincident and distant ideas. What it does, it just snaps from one reference to a next. So if I come over here and pick this surface, as I drag, notice how I snap, see how it snaps to that datum. So if I wanted to assemble objects, at this point in time, it just works off a snapping mechanism. So I'll say I want to snap it there. Let's go ahead and pick the bottom surface. There we are. Let's go ahead and make sure that guy's snapped down. Let's go ahead and pick, well, there we go. Okay, let's pick this guy, and I want to snap it. Oh, sorry guys, we've already snapped that one. We've already snapped it. Let's just leave it in that spot. Okay, so we snapped it over into a spot. I guess we can go through our move. Go. Let's snap it here. There we are. Okay, so we can go through move and put it in the spot we want. Now, can I put in other components? Okay, so let's go ahead and put in a Pro E component. Now, if I go back to the Pro E portion of it, right, or Creo Parametric, see how I have this bolt. There's my bolt, right? Here's my bolt that I have. If I go back to Creo Direct, let's go to the assembly, and I'm going to say I want to insert an object. Here's the bolt that I have, and I now can insert my bolt. So we'll kind of drag it into space. Okay, drag it into space, move it over to somewhere close that we want. I'll pick that cylindrical surface, and if we go ahead and drag it from there, notice how it snaps directly to that hole that I have right here. I can come in and pick that surface, go ahead and drag it down, and we see that it snaps into that specific hole. Okay. If we want to move it, we go ahead and pick the bolt and say move, and then we can move it to a different spot. Now, here's my part that I have. Okay, right? Here's my assembly that I put together. Let's go ahead and save that. Save it into a specific spot. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and close this window, right? There it is. We know we have that part open, but we don't have the part, or excuse me, our bolt open. Let's make sure we erase it. Okay, we'll erase it. It does work off the memory. Now, if I come to this part right here, all right, let's go ahead and let's put another feature in it. I'm going to come in, say I want to put that, put a hole right here. We'll just put in kind of a generic hole just to make some geometry change right here. We'll put it in kind of a weird spot just so we see that we have a hole. Let's go ahead and say File Save. Now, if I come back to the Creo Parametric app, or excuse me, the Creo Direct app, and open this assembly up, there we are. Notice how what happens, the part updates. So again, these are not disconnected systems. They do not have individual parts for this package and individual parts. They work off the same common data file, right? If I come in and here's this part 2, what I can do with this part 2, if I come back, go back to Creo Parametric and go ahead and open up part 2. One thing that I want you to notice here is, what do you have? You have all of the features that actually were built, even though they weren't, you didn't see them building them, and actually in the background of the Creo Direct app, it actually has all those features. And at this point in time, if I had someone that was outside of the engineering realm that says, hey, look at this thing, and you're like, okay, let me take a look at it. Hey, you know what, we need to change these rounds. Well, maybe I don't have Creo Direct, maybe I don't care to use it that much, but I can come in and change all of my rounds. I'll do an edit right here. Instead of being 1.2, we'll say 0.5. There it is. And I changed, okay, and I've changed now that round. So again, for those of you that haven't been seeing too much of what PTC has been offering, you kind of get an idea of what this concept is of the common data file. And this is really what PTC is talking about, where they're creating softwares or pieces of softwares that fit a number of different users, whether it's the hardcore engineering team or just some prototyping guys, or they want to make tools that are easy for you to use, that a number of different people that you use, but at the same time make it so that data can be absorbed by other portions of software that PTC puts out, okay? So you have the flexible modeling tool, right? And then you have the Creo Direct application. The flexible modeling extension is an extension that you buy that extends onto Creo Parametric, and then you have the standalone piece of software that is Creo Direct that you buy, that you use as if it was standalone. Okay. Now, one thing that I didn't show you, and again, just an idea here on flexible modeling, is that if I go ahead and open up this cool little assembly that I have, where's that? This. All right, this little hand assembly, and I think it'll be a big bird's nest if I don't turn off all this stuff. Yep, there we go. Okay, so I have this little robotic hand, right, and what you'll see here is that the little fingers have holes on them. Okay, now, if I come in and say, hey, I want to assemble this little finger pin, okay, I just made a little cylinder to assemble, and I'll kind of drag it a little bit closer so we can see size-wise, right, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and say, all right, I want this. Let's open up my finger pin here just for a second. Let's open it up. There we go. Okay, that's what we should be seeing. Let's go back to that. Say assemble. Assemble the finger pin. There we are. There we go. Now I can see it. Okay. All right, so I'll say I want that cylindrical surface, right, to apply into that cylindrical surface. Let's go ahead and drag it back over here. There we are. And then I want that flat surface into, so we can see it a little bit better. There it is, onto that flat surface. Instead of it being a distance, I want it to be a coincident. And what I've done is assemble that pin into that finger hole. Now, let's go ahead and open up our little part right here. Okay, here's our, again, Pro-E created part. And what I'm going to do is, instead of moving this hole, right, maybe I built this hole and it has some relationship to finding on width and what the size of it is, but you know what, I just want to make a quick change to where the hole is. So again, come into the flexible modeling. I'll say, hey, I want to move right? I want to move this guy right here, and I want to move him this way. There it is, and I just want to move him over. Okay, we just moved it over a certain distance. Again, it could be based off dimensions, but we want to move it. There's a move that I created. If I come back to the assembly that I have, right, and do a Control-G for regenerate, we do our regeneration, and what you'll see is that part, right, move over right along with it, okay? So again, when we're doing flexible modeling moves, if you go back and look at this, right, what you're really creating are features, in this case on the Pro E, at the end of your models. And again, when I want to move it back, if I just would say, you know what, I don't like that, either you can delete it, you can drag your insert back above it, and it just allows you to make these nice, quick edits without all the complications sometimes of you knowing what's going on or having to deal with the things that as a company we decided to build into this. And this is really where the flexible modeling extension comes into, and in the Creo Direct app, you can move files back and forth, make geometry. You know, if I wanted to, if we wanted to open this up in Creo Direct and add a little boss on top of it, or a little, you know, a little indentation or something like that, but I wasn't doing that. Maybe we have some one of our prototypers, they just want to use it, but they don't use Pro E that often. They could use the Creo Direct app to get in there, make some of those features, and when I want to look at it, I open it back up in Pro E and make some changes that I have into it. This is what is considered to be the common data file, and you will hear that a bunch from PTC, whether it's 2.0 or even as you move forward from there. The common data file, that's the goal and the concept of what PTC is trying to accomplish. Okay? All right. A last little tidbit in the slides that I wanted to show you, just so you guys can see this. I think it's important for everybody to kind of understand this, is that these are, at this time, the direct modeling pieces of software that PTC offers. So we covered the flexible modeling extension, and it is an extension of Creo Parametric. You have the Creo Direct, where we open it up, create a little bit of geometry, put the assembly together with the snapping functions, open up the bolt, kind of went back and forth and looked at it back and forth, right? Standalone software, works off just the regular licensing idea. Okay, standalone app allows you to create simple stuff, make some edits for Pro E parts and or the Creo Directs. And then what you have are is Creo Elements Direct. Creo Elements Direct is co-create. Okay, Creo Elements Direct, for those of you that aren't familiar with the terms or even confused with the terms, and I guess we can cover this quickly, and it's just something that I think it's important to educate everybody on, is that anything that is called Creo Elements Direct is not Creo, what most people are thinking Creo is. It's the Wildfire 5 idea and back. What PTC did was mainstream Wildfire 5, made a branding change. And what the branding change was, is they took Wildfire 5 and made it into Creo Elements Pro. And then what they made co-create into was Creo Elements Direct. Okay? With Creo Parametric or Creo 1.0, what you have is, for those users that are using Creo Parametric, think of it, and I know PTC wouldn't necessarily want me to say this, but think of it as Wildfire 6. So Creo Parametric 1.0, Creo Parametric, big key word, 1.0 would be the next version of Pro E, and for everybody to relate Wildfire 6. Okay, so you have Creo Parametric, which is the new version of Pro E. You have Creo Elements Direct, which is the co-create. You have Creo Direct 1.0, which is within the new family, the no brand, which is the simple modeling tool. And then you have the flexible modeling extension, which is a Creo Parametric only application. Okay, so just wanted to make sure everybody understands, because you go to the websites and you see a lot of different things, and sometimes you're confused, you don't know where to go, and just hopefully that gave you a little bit of idea of what you are looking at. Okay, I have a few extra minutes on top of the 15. But for time purposes, I think this is a good place to stop, so I don't get into anything that we have to stop in the middle of. But at this point in time, let me see if there are any questions that we have. Okay. If you have any questions at this point in time, feel free to ask anything that you want. For those of you that hopped on, we'll end just a few minutes early than what we usually do, an extra 5 minutes early than what we usually do. For those of you that don't have any questions and aren't necessarily interested in hanging on for anything, feel free to go ahead and drop off at this time because we won't have anything else after this. Let me go ahead and go back to, I forgot to put my information slide in this one. Let me go ahead and go back up so I can get to my information if anybody wants to. Let's see here. There it is. Okay. For anybody that has questions that they don't want to ask or don't feel like asking on the webcast, feel free to contact me at this information right here. And again, for those of you that aren't going to stick on, feel free to go ahead and drop off. If you do have questions, go ahead and ask those now, and I'll try to get any of those answered at this time.
It looks like we have one. Kevin is asking, can I use the move surfaces for mating, etc.?
All right, let me see if I understand that. I might, Kevin, I don't know if I fully understand that question. Oh, yeah, okay. Let me make sure. So if you move, as in move surfaces, if I move geometry with the move, can I then turn around in assembly and use them? Absolutely. So if you give me a thumbs up or something, hopefully, or give me a question and make sure that's right. The answer is yes if you're asking that. So if you do move surfaces, whether you're in the IGES parts or whether you're in Pro E parts, yes, you can use those later for assembly purposes at any given time. Because again, it's just geometry manipulation. That's it. Okay. All right, so we have one from Khalil. Let's see here. What do you got, bud? I use Pro E5 Wildfire 5. Just purchased Creo Parametric Direct. What changes should I look for? CAD user and engineering. Okay. So what you really look for, Khalil, is there's some good changes, and I wish I can get into them now. Khalil, I'm going to direct you to our YouTube page, and I'll try to, I think we have your email address. We actually did an intro to Creo Parametric, and it showed you some of those changes. There's quite a few changes. A lot of them visually are just the interface changes, but there are some fundamental things that PTC has streamlined in the process-wise that you would see. So you can email me directly if you like, and I can kind of direct you to that, or I can even take you through some of those changes. For this, we won't get into it just because it'll take up so much time. But also, if you go to our YouTube page, where we have a lot of our webcasts out there, that you can see that, and you can look at that intro one, and it'll give you a good idea of what you're running into. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. And Rosalinda, we do send out our YouTube link to everybody. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll send that information to Khalil and well, that specific link and your contact info.
Okay. So Khalil, hopefully that'll give you a good idea of what you're getting into when you move forward, and it should give you a good start. What is next week's topic? Rosalinda, what do we have for next Thursday?
We are still putting our calendar together for April, and I should be sending that out Friday afternoon.
Okay, very good, very good. So sounds like that should be coming out here and Friday afternoon tomorrow, correct?
That's correct. That's right, tomorrow is Friday. And John, I'll shoot you that information as well.
Yeah, for those of you that are still on, if this is your first time jumping on our webcast, we've been doing them now for about 2 months, and we have a pretty good library on the on YouTube with a lot of different
Oh,
things. So
it's been longer than that. You started our first one in, yeah, November. It's gone fast, has it not?
Yes, yes, it has. About November. Okay, so we have all the way back until November of things that we've done, and we've done things from Windchill, PDM Link to Project Link to Mechanica, advanced assembly stuff, the Creo Direct, and parametric things. So, and it is, and I know it is based off of the Creo Parametric or the Creo 1.0 platform, but it gives you some good ideas of what's coming down the pipe and things that you can look forward to. No problem.
I'm not seeing any more questions just yet.
Okay. We'll wait till 10 till, okay, and then we'll shut it down.
That works.
Again, if you don't have any questions, go ahead and feel free to drop off. Thank you, John. You also. Feel free to drop off whenever you feel like it. Unless you do have a question and you'd like to ask, I'll give you another 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes, whatever it is, to get those in.
Looks like we have one.
All right, let's see what we got here. I also use Precision LS for my wildfire. They will update their Windwheel. Are you looking for, Khalil, for they should, unless I'm wrong, they should have training updated all the way up until the Creo 1.0 releases in the parametrics. Khalil, that only updates if you are a maintenance paying customer for the Precision LMS. Rosalinda, am I wrong in saying that?
You are correct.
Okay, so if you know, just like maintenance for Pro-E, there is a maintenance charge, so when they do release new educational material in the Precision LMS, you do have access to that. They don't just always continually add it. Essentially, it's when you buy it, I believe it's whatever's current and backwards that you can get at, just like they do for Pro-E. So if you did have or have not paid maintenance on it, depends on whether you do or do not get those updates. So that might be something that you want to check into if you're looking for something specifically. And if you are looking for something specifically and you need to renew that, go ahead and give us a call, and we could take care of that for you really quickly. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. All right, looks like we'll go ahead and close it up here for the last two guys that are on. Thanks for hanging around. Hopefully you got something good out of today. You'll continue to get emails with our current schedule, and then also the ability to attend any of the other ones in the future. So thanks for getting on, guys, and have a good weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate it.